Chromatic harmony requires as a starting point a single note melodic line that moves in chromatic fashion, that is, by semitone steps. A chromatic group, so called, involves three movements in which the first and the third notes are differentiated by acquiring unique alphabet letters, while the second member of the group takes on a chromaticized version of the first alphabet letter. In its final form, the chromatic group is heard as a progression of three chords of four-part harmony. The chord progressions may ascend or descend, and their slippery chromatic nature is further enhanced by their potential to modulate suddenly from one key to another. In fact, Schillinger states that all modulations are a branch of chromatic harmony. Each note is assigned a function limited initially to 1, 3, 5 or 7. How to assign functions to the group is entirely at the discretion of the composer. What will be immediately obvious is that the same melodic group can be harmonized in dozens of different ways, and so this method offers huge potential for subtle variation. It's generally the case that the central member of the group, the central harmony, should be more tense or dissonant than the first and the last chords, and that if this rule is observed, a satisfying wave of harmonic flux, moving from balance to tension and then to resolution, can be established. This means that when the three extra voices are being created, care should be taken that one of the voices retains the seventh function over the middle chord. For example, the melodic group C, C sharp, D might well become C major, C sharp 7, D major. Here, the middle chord contains the dissonant seventh, while the outer chords are relatively consonant major qualities. Notice that in this case, the notes of the original chromatic group have all been taken as the roots of the final harmonies. In other words, they have all been assigned the function 1. Now let's consider some of the other variants based on this original group. Let's change just one function in the group. For example, 1, 3, 1. The first and the last chords remain rooted on C and D, but the root of the middle chord is now determined de facto by the C sharp being designated as the third of a chord. If this were the case, then there are two possible roots. A, lying a major third below C sharp, and A sharp, a minor third below. Indeed, the quality, major, minor, diminished, augmented, and so forth, increases substantially the number of alternative harmonizations of any one melodic group. The quality of the middle and final chord is entirely up to the composer, but there is a practical limitation that determines the quality of the starting chord. The rule is that as the melodic group moves from the first chord to the next, it must not make any non-diatonic intervals with the surrounding voices. These intervals would destroy the smoothness of the progression. For this reason, Schillinger advises that when the first note of an ascending group is the third, the first harmony should be minor in quality, so that as the chromatic voice rises, it doesn't create offending intervals with the other parts. And this process is shown in the table on page 498 of the Schillinger system. The table should be read as follows. If the first note of a rising chromatic group is the root, then the chord must be major. If the first note of a descending chromatic group is the third, then the chord must be major. And if the first note of an ascending chromatic group is the fifth, then the chord must be major. Or to put it another way, the chord must be minor if the root is to descend, or minor if the third is to ascend, or minor if the fifth is to descend. Once the basic principles of chromatic operations have been understood, it becomes possible to chain chromatic groups into long journeys of wandering or vagrant harmonic progressions. Here's one, quoted from page 500, figure 213 of the Schillinger system. Schillinger explores chromatic harmony at great length, introducing all sorts of alternatives like triple and quadruple parallel chromatic groups, parallel double chromatics, or overlapping chromatics. This excerpt from Schoenberg's Verklärte Nacht is the quintessence of chromatic harmony used to express great ideas and passionate emotions. You could describe the results of chromatic harmony as being like diatonic symmetric harmony, the kind described in Pitt Structure's Semester B Week 2, but in this case driven by chromatic voice leading. What follows is sadly not of the same quality as the Schoenberg, but attempts to illustrate this process of chromatic voice leading in a proto-compositional illustration. First, chromatic groups are chained together. As one group ends, so another begins on a different function of the projected chord. When these lines are fully harmonized and arranged for instruments, a slippery, emotionally unstable affect is, I think, understood.